And it's me, the one and only panel of friends, welcoming you to Starfleet Universe On Call. And tonight, well, looks like it's just what? I got started a little bit late just because of various technical difficulties that happened in the past 30 minutes. Don't know. My mic went dead, and I had to restart everything, and that took like a lot longer than I'd ever expected. It took like 10 minutes to shut everything down and start everything back up. Got a lot of stuff running. So, given that it's just what happening this week, what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to go. Well, the original topic that I have for tonight, well, the person that I want to actually have with me is not here, and which is Gary. I wanted to discuss something with Gary because Gary posted some interesting things on the actual SFB discussion board, about M80. Wrong window. Lost it. Dang it. Sorry. About M81 and give me a sec. Part of the restart, I lost my page on the discussion board. Big surprise. But yeah, the M81 Galaxy and the Celtorian Nebular Combat variants, which is interesting, because I know also Gary wanted to also discuss TAC Intel, which I think is going to be a very interesting topic, because TAC Intel is one of those things that's rarely used in SFB just because of the amount of procedural things that needs to be done. Now, I'm just going to bring it up real quick, and then I'm going to drop it because that is a topic for another evening. And that is that the thing is with TAC Intel, one thing that people thought of as soon as SFB Online became a thing, and you could do something other than just playing tournament games, is that they wanted the TAC Intel rules to be implemented in the client. And that is problematic. Well, okay. Actually, honestly, I feel like today it might be less problematic because of the SSDs and how they're actually done. Because in Wayback Machine, the SSDs were actually graphical images stored in the client that you could download and use, and then those were an overlay was on top of it to actually allow you to interact with those boxes, and those boxes would be defined by hand, which was a pain in the butt, but it worked well. The third gen definitions would work much better for TAC Intel, because of all the boxes are actually drawn on the screen. So given that they're actually drawn on the screen, that means I can control what is drawn and what's not drawn. Therefore, the TAC Intel rules, the implementation of the TAC Intel rules as part of SFB Online, it would be less difficult to do. So, given that, I think the best thing, is at the moment, I'm going to leave Sleeping Dogs Live. I'm not going to try to implement it because I've looked at some of those rules, and it takes a bit of time. And I can understand why people would never play with TAC Intel, just because of how it's not okay. The rules aren't complicated, but they're detailed, and it takes a lot of keeping good records. Basically, if you wanted to play this, way back when, before the advent of the SFB Online client, before the advent of computers, for the most part, it's how often would you actually have a computer right beside you? Even when I was when I was working, when I first got out of college and I was working, we had computers, but there were PCs. Laptops really didn't exist too much. Yeah, there were some laptops, but not exactly the greatest in the world. I still remember the one time I let my brother borrow my laptop because he wanted it, and it got lost. Actually, I forget if he lost it or got stolen. One of those two. But it was by today's standard, it was really underpowered. I still remember I had, what was it? I installed like double drive or something like that. The whole idea was to double the space on your drive by using software. Basically, it would use compression. Actually, Iggy, when it comes to fleets, I don't think many people do these days. But when it comes to single ship duels, yeah. Obviously, for fleets, I think more people than not, when it comes to Federation Commander, they'll play it in fleets, because that's one thing. Okay, I rag on Ken Burnside. I'm not sure it was Ken Burnside's thought or Steve Cole's thought. I'm not sure which. Either one was a fool's errand. The whole idea of fleet versus squadron size ships when it comes to FedCom, the idea is to speed it up and so forth, which obviously did not work out. And that's plain and simple. If you actually played it and you look at it, it comes pretty obvious what the issue is, which is you have both the defensive and offensive systems on the ship. You have them done by half, and that means that you're still going to take just as long, because the amount of damage to get through those shields is going to be a lot harder. If you want to speed up play, decrease the amount of shields, or get rid of shields altogether. You want to talk about changing the game, that would do it. But I think that would be the best in that case. If you want to speed up play, have it so that only the max shields are 5 box shields. I'll let more internals happen, so the game would end a lot quicker, So that's my opinion on that. But anyway, so when it comes to back to Tack and Tell, it just took a lot of record keeping, and the whole idea would be that if you decide we're going to play Tack and Tell, we're going to play the whole gamut, Tack and Tell, electronic warfare, and so forth. Basically, what you could have is somebody who's they don't actually get to play the game. They're basically a human computer that keeps track of everything. Or they're control. They have one ship to do the energy allocation for and so forth, and then play that. So they have lesser responsibilities. Therefore, they could keep track of things a lot more. And yeah, who was it? Was it Steve? I think it might have been mentioned in the rules itself, might have been in the tactics manual, where it was said that what you do is you give the responsibility of Tack and Tell to a junior member of your group to keep track of Tack and Tell, because a lot of it is like he got long-term observation, things like that. In which case, that's why it takes a lot of record keeping. What's the distances? If you stay at a certain distance for a certain bit of time, your Tack and Tell level actually goes up. Things like that, to that, and that's why it would take a long time, and like anything else, implementing rules in on an online client is not exactly a simple task to do as it stands. And I've talked about this. It's been a while, which is the whole idea of taking all the rules for SFB and implementing them in a client or a server or whatever. In theory, you can do it. It's a 10-year project, but you could do it. And even then, you can't say that you got it right. This is when what's the programming language I'm thinking of? It was used as a learning system. Crap. I remember. Jesus, it's been a while since. It was a rules-based language, where the idea was that you could do inferences based on this, and this. You got this result. Dang it. It's been 85 or 86 when I was dealing with that language. It was one of those optional, not optional courses. It was optional, but electives back in college that I took. It was Prologue. Yes. Thank you, Iggy. Wow. I can't believe you remember that. Prologue. That was it. And you could use Prologue to implement the rules. This, and that. I don't think so. Even then, I said the big issue with that, would you get it right the first time? Because Lord knows there's always bugs. That's why I think my initial implementation of Federation Commander as a closed system was a failure. Because I didn't take into the consideration that if I got the rules wrong, I have to jump on that and fix it. So the only way I could actually have it so that the rules were implemented correctly is actually I'd have to get a server involved, or a way of downloading the fixed code a lot more quicker onto the client itself. Yeah. You get this thing when it comes to Prologue, the only logic paradigm language I ever heard of. Yeah, me too. That was part of artificial intelligence. That back in those days, that was going to be not artificial intelligence. It was called expert systems. The whole idea was that you have people have the domain knowledge. They would actually communicate that to like a developer. And then the developer would then rewrite it in this Prologue. The idea being that you could capture all this knowledge, and then the knowledge could then be passed on, and you wouldn't have to worry about, basically the whole hit by the bus syndrome, where that person either leaves the company or dies suddenly, and all that knowledge is lost. That was the whole idea. They could just pass it on and. And so I was about to go off on a computer tangent, which I don't think at this moment in time we really should go down that road. But since we're going to be here as much to talk about TAC Intel with Gary, because I know Gary, there's a particular reason I want to talk about TAC Intel, which from the looks of it, it was this post. He just posted this week, the one which is about M181 Saltorian Nebular combat variants. I will not go into that one right now. If you want to, you can go read it. It's under Starfleet Battles. The discussion board. Starfleet Battles proposal. SFB proposals board. New ships. R-15 Saltorian proposals. I am not having a good time. This is not going good. But okay, I want to do this. Let's see if just for giggles, so you can see the page, and this is the page right here, and there is the path for that actual topic. Those just listening. Oh, hey Chris. Those just listening. Just you go to the discussion board. You can. As I said, you can go down the Starfleet Battles, then SFB Proposals Board, then New Ships, then R-15 Saltorian Proposals, and then underneath that you'll find the M81 Galaxy Saltorian Nebular Combat Variants. You'll see that. So if you want to find it, there it is. If you don't know where the discussion board is, you're in trouble. Just go to starfleetgames.com, and one of the buttons right there on the home screen is the discuss button. So you can jump right there. Actually, that's one thing I just thought about, and that is that I think the Starfleet games really could use a revamp. Heck, SFB Online could use a revamp because it's nice in a way. The simplistic, if you have the different products, and then you have this selection of buttons. Overall, it's kind of antiquated and old. Obviously, you can go to Facebook. Also, there's the Twitter, so you can see the Twitter. All rights reserved. Blah, blah, blah. I love this. Copyrighted. Updated continuously. So instead of having a last updated it has that instead. Federation Empire, Minor Empires. That's a good one. But yeah, and there's Starfleet Battle Force. So you see all the products right here. I'm just wondering if there's a better way of showing that, but it is what it is. Moving on. The one thing that I wanted to talk about many weeks ago, and I tried twice. Once, when I first brought up the topic of Starfleet Battle Force, and I was trying to steer the whole discussion onto this, and then I tried to get back on it a couple weeks ago, and that still failed. So I apologize. I felt like, I wanted to include Gary, a few weeks back, and that's why I stopped discussing it. Maybe I might have to change that the way of doing things. And just say, Gary, if you get here late and I'm already discussing a topic, I'm going to stay on that topic, and if you want to, you can discuss it, but we're not going to go off on any topics that you have. That's probably what I should do. And I'm sure some people right now say, yay, do that. And I understand your feeling on that. Okay, but the reason I was going through all that rigmarole to bring up Starfleet Battle Force was because of one thing that came to mind over a month ago now, which is how hard would it be to create Starfleet Battle Force, an actual game, online. Now, I know currently there's still a vassal, which actually shouldn't be there. My understanding is that Steve Cole one that pulled down because it contains, he might change his mind. But that's one thing I was actually looking at. Let me see if I still have it. Yeah, here it is. Which is, there are, I apologize for that. And that is, there are frameworks that allow you to more easily write up a game. Now, I have not tried to do it yet. I did, way back when I actually did initial implementation of, excuse me, a little bit more light over here. I did in Unity. Now, the one gotcha with Unity is that Unity, you have to develop in, I think, C#, which is not that bad. They were actually going for JavaScript for a bit then they dropped support for JavaScript, which I think was a big mistake. My guess is they've dropped support for JavaScript because they didn't want to support two different languages, therefore twice the effort and so forth. And possibly they might have an issue with JavaScript itself. I'm not sure why, because I'm sure you could have it running under Node. Node.js. They could have done it that way, but they didn't. But I don't think about that now. So I was looking up card frameworks like a month ago, and I came this one, especially because the one thing I liked about this one was called I pronounce it Godot. I think that's correct. It's Godot, so Godot or Godot. However, I'm not sure. But anyway, I know enough about waiting. One of the side kind of plays called Waiting for Godot, which is based on the two of the characters from I forget which play from Shakespeare. There was the two characters basically was waiting for this guy who never shows up. The whole play is about these two guys in their discussion about it. It's called Waiting for Godot. And that's why I pronounce this Godot as Godot. So shoot me if I'm mispronouncing it. But I say it's the Godot card framework. And there's a quick start guide so you can bring in all the images and things like that. And it's comes to programmatically, it's another language called GD script. I'm looking at it. It doesn't look bad. Looks like there's no, like if then else. There's no thens. You say if and you end it with a semicolon. Or colon, not semicolon. I need new glasses, or at least watch these things. Has a whole concept of ranges and things like that. That doesn't look like a bad language. It's this. I'm not sure what the difference between this is and this is. Colon equals versus equals. Is it that one is supposed to be? Well, actually, I'm going to say it's constant because there's constants here. Not sure. Maybe it's just stylistic. This makes sense here. Maybe this is the reason why, because it actually these don't define. These are implicit types. These are explicit types. In this way, this would actually be an implicit type too, wouldn't it? That inferred type is now type, and of course there's type var dictionary, which is basically dictionary in Python terms or map in Java terms. I think it's also it's called a hash in Perl terms. They all have the same. It's all the same thing, which is key value pairs. So it doesn't look like that bad of a language. I'm actually interested in doing Starfleet Battle Force as part, using the Godot framework, because I've got all the assets, for the cards and so forth. To me, the big thing that I want to do, because unfortunately, I don't think I saved the links. I should have saved the links. I'm not as good about that as I really should be. Which is examples of, I forget which card game it was. I'm thinking it was the Magic the Gathering. I forget it was Magic the Gathering. There's some other card game that there's videos of on YouTube. It shows basically it's an isometric view of the table, and then you could see the other players' cards. Now, obviously, if you want to simplify a card game and the interaction as a first go at it, obviously you can have a top-down view of the table. So, in the case of top-down view of the table, you have your cards, and the other players will have their cards. And especially with Starfleet Battle Force, you actually have arrangements of cards on the table. So you could have it so that basically it's a square, and then as the cards get flipped or laid on the table, you can see them on the table, and obviously positioning would have to be defined by the game system. My assumption is that I think I read enough of this to know that positions and things like that are defined by you, and you can do that, which would be I think kind of interesting. Actually, I'm kind of interested in doing this. I got at the moment. I've been working on the client a little bit, and trying to get back to what I started 2 years ago, I think it was, which is modernizing the client. You know, I did one thing, which is I delayed the changing the back end. I really would like to do the back end, but I know it's a lot. The thing is, taking the old code and how it worked and make it so it works with the new server is not easy. So I was figuring, okay, I'm gonna put that off, save that off, and switch back to the modernization. And I got one thing I need to think about for the modernization is how it's supposed to look. I went back to the actual discussion board to say, this is my vision for it, and so I like that, but I only say that just because that I might look at this a little bit, but I'm not going to try to focus too much on it. I want to work on the modernization of the client itself, or possibly creating a web-based version of the client, at least the minimum viable product kind of thing, which is SSDs, moving the board, EA, damage allocation, launch seeking weapons, tracking of actually is that minimum viable product? No, I was going to think about tracking weapons, but you don't really have to track the weapons except for that's a question, which is, do you actually have to track for minimum viable product? I'm not saying final product, which is minimum viable product. Would you actually have to track the number of drones and plasma and so forth launched? Well, not track them as much as track how much are left on your ship. I think as initial minimum viable product, I'd say no. The minimum viable product in my mind, though, would be required to keep a list of all destroyed units. All units are removed from the board. The idea being that you could keep a record of what drones are used. When's the last when was what plasmas were used and so forth, and when were they launched? Because that'd be part of the information. Because that's it. Be like we have today, right? It has the torpedo tube, and then it has also the turn and impulse of when it was launched. I'm doing fantastic. Forgive me. I just lost my light, so I went into darkness. Okay, I think I'm good at the moment. Okay, I gotta stop doing that. Okay, maybe that keep on hitting my elbow on it. I'm sorry. And for you that are just listening to it, you missed some funny stuff. But anyway, so what was it? Damn. Right. Minimum viable product for an online version of the web-based version of the client. So those are the kind of things that I'm interested in. Well, I just haven't had time. And of course, that comes down to interesting things because I'm at that age. Big surprise. I'm 55. Let me think. No, I'm 56 at this point. Because I was born in 1966, and it's now 2022. So that would make me 56 years old. Yes, I'm getting up there. But I'm alive. Hey, that's the important thing. And that is, what do I want to, do? Meaning that, given the because I think about this, which is, if I was given the opportunity if I had enough money, whether lottery or whatever, where I actually could quit my day job, not to deal with those people, which they're not bad people, sometimes it's more stressful than others. I think like any other job out there. But given the possibility of leaving that all behind and focusing just on Starfleet battles, Federation Commander, Starfleet Battle Force, any programming, even Starfleet Warlord, to develop up those clients, the technology behind it, and how it's used and so forth. Modernizing the electronic version of those games and so forth. Would I be happy doing that? I don't know. At this moment, I'm not. But these are, when you get to be my age, these are the kind of things that start rolling through your heads, especially when I know I've been working on the client on and off, because I'm not saying that I've always been developing it. Sometimes I just let it, lay fallow because I've had other things to do. And developing the client has not always been the top priority. Big surprise, come on. That's the same thing that happens with everybody, where the top priority is not this game, it's your family and so forth, and then also other activities outside of that. And that happens. I'm not sure if you heard that or not. Got a little thunder, and there's supposed to be a storm coming through, and I'm just hoping that either I can get this done before that happens, or that it doesn't affect us. But if I all of a sudden this thing ends, or rather abruptly, you'll know why. But anyway, moving on onward and forward. But those are the kind of things that I think about. And let's say that I move on to a different job. If taking that additional job would take me away from even the possibility of working on something outside, SFB Online, Starfleet Warlord, things like that. Would I do it? Would I take it? I don't know. Because that's all it comes to priorities and things. But I think having it, I truly think that the future is running the, SFB Online, Starfleet Warlord, and Starfleet Battle Force, all those online, as actually using the web browser as your UI. Now, the tough part about that is just that it requires a whole new skill set compared to I can do back-end work. I've done back-end work, but I haven't, I haven't done much when it comes to UI, i.e. the web. So I'd have to, at the moment, I'm actually in the middle of learning React. I have to get back to it. I stopped working on that, learning it 2 weeks ago, maybe 3. But I want to get back to that because I think it's an interesting way of designing, especially with what's called JSX, which is basically making the actual the JavaScript objects themselves. Actually, these are TypeScript. No, I got UPS. Iggy, here's the problem. If I lose power, it has nothing to do about the computer. It has everything to do with my cable modem and my router. I don't have UPSs for my cable modem or my router. So, the whole place is, so in that case, I will lose connectivity at that point. But back into, and I've said it for a while now that I see the future is on the web. Because Lord knows it's becoming more and more difficult. Actually, here's the thing. It's getting more and more difficult to actually install things onto your computer because of they want, all these antivirus thinks Java is a big virus. And rewriting that code base, if I'm going to rewrite that code base, why would I write it to be actually on the computer these days? Maybe, make it as an Electron app, So basically it's just a browser wrap, my code has a little UI, which is a wrapped browser, and that's how it gets distributed. So people don't have to worry about going to a website or anything like that. But, everything else is still, on and on. I guess the funny part is that the new push for technology is pushing towards serverless, truly serverless, distributed, which is, for those who've been dealing with computers for years. When I first started, we had all these PCs. Yeah, we might have a network, but that wasn't much. We might use that for sharing files and possibly accessing your email server, things like that. And then during that time, there was a big push. Okay, let's not get back into the old client server model where, in this case, that was back in the mainframe, when mainframe was still pretty close to king for the big ones. We don't want to have, so you have terminals and you have this server running at somewhere else, and that's how you communicate with the computer. It's like, well, okay. So we went distributed. That's it. Peer to peer. That was the whole thing. Peer to peer. And the problem with peer to peer, which actually, if you believe it or not, the original client, the way I did things, it was peer to peer. Everybody got a copy of the board, and then it's only by that and so there was no server holding the canonical copy. The canonical copy was the one who actually owned those pieces. That's the canonical copy. Now, the tough part with the canonical copy like that is that for things that are not owned by a player, let's say, turn and impulse. Who owns that? No one owns that. You still need a central source of truth. But I didn't have a single source of truth, and so invariably sometimes the impulse number would change as people came in the room, because the fun part about that was that a person would come into the room and then every single player would then have to send their updates to everybody else, and everyone got it. It wasn't just sent to the single person, it was sent to everybody. Because back in the day, basically, you were connected to a computer. The only reason you connected to a computer was acting as a router to send information to everybody else. That was the only reason. And now these days, they're saying, oh, it's all server-based. You have your terminal, i.e. browser, connected to a server somewhere on the internet, somewhere else. So given that, so we're going back to what we originally had, which we were so ensconced to be away from, trying to get away from that we're going right back to it. So what's happening? The solution, peer-to-peer. In this case, blockchain. Distributed blockchain. The funny part about blockchains, and this is the one thing that, don't get enamored with blockchain. Please don't. What is the biggest issue with blockchain? Okay, you have multiple copies. Now here's the issue. Here's always the issue and the gotcha in the whole thing. Who are the validators? When you add a new block into that blockchain, you have to have people validate that. That's what proof of work is. is that that same operation happens to multiple people, and they go, okay, I can verify that. They can go and easily verify, oh, that's a valid transaction. But you have to have a consensus for that to take place, at least for like Bitcoin and most cryptocurrencies have that validator status. Lord knows, I just saw Bitcoin today. I stopped by this little kiosk. Well, I passed by his kiosk. And currently, Bitcoin is at $20,000 for one Bitcoin, so it's dropped down some more, which is crazy. You know, as I said, Bitcoin is always speculative. But anyway, because of the thing is, it's those validators. That's where you have the issue. Well, hey Shelly. Yeah, I know Shelly. I really need to respond to your email. I need to talk to the people of Starfleet Warlord about you. Because what you did was really bad. You know, I know Gene will never forgive you, and Gene definitely will not want you back. But I have to talk about to other people about that whole situation, and see if they're not interested, if they will allow you back in. Okay. But you know, yes, I find feeling, Shelly, that was you last time I saw you on the Twitch. You know, because you're the only person I know that's going Harley Quinn. But yeah, okay. So I'll get back to you in the next week. Okay, just to let you know, I definitely I have not forgotten you. I know sometimes it seems like I have, but I have not. Getting back to a really quick thing on the validator thing, which is, you know, that's the key, is the validators. And that's why there's always that issue where if you have too many of the validators are owned by a small group of people, you know, as in the servers, are owned by too many people, a very select few people, they control the blockchain. Which is why people go, oh yeah, blockchain, that's a solution. Okay, first question, who will be the validators? Is it going to be one that then defines it? Or will it be certain organizations that go, oh yeah, we can validate the blockchain? But after the validates say, okay, it's good, you know, after there's consensus of the validators that is good, then it gets added to the blockchain and then it gets distributed to everybody. But that's the control piece, which is the validators. That's to make sure that you don't have split chains, you know. But anyhow, you know, so it's just another technology, you know, and here what's going to happen again. Actually, part of the whole serverless peer-to-peer thing is, I think it's IPFS. It's like Internet Protocol File System. It's an interesting idea, which is basically a distributed file system which lives over the internet. But it's not. It's not Tor. Crap. I'm forgetting now. The torrent, BitTorrent. Yes, torrents. You know, where you actually can have pieces of a single file in multiple places, or you can download it from different places and then gather it all together, and boom, you got it. So it's kind of like that. But you know, the question is, will we, you know, do this whole peer-to-peer thing again, and then realize that there's certain issues that you can't solve by peer-to-peer, and go right back to the server-based model, where it's client-server, that you're all pointing to a single point of truth when it comes to, you know, that data. So, and of course, who controls that? And goes down that whole road, you know. So, anyhow, I think I'm gonna end it there. It's been lovely hanging out with you guys. I'm gonna have to re-record my news portion because I recorded it before this podcast, and then I played it back and found out that 2 seconds into the start of that news second segment, it dropped off. Everything, the mic went dead. Boom. So I'm not exactly sure what happened, and I really don't, because of, it's not like this one. This recording is actually it's a virtual device where I have both the mic and my browser connect. They're considered a single mic together, a single input device. So not sure what happened, but that's one thing I'll have to do after I get offline with you guys. So with that, I am Paul Franz. I had to bid you a good night.